Welcome back to the Mayhem Summer Slam, where questionable teams bring questionable brews. For this week, it's the final round of the Mayhem Summer Slam. Because of that, this round is double points. With that being said, let's check out the pod today. First, we have Elijah on Kibo Jungle Fire, a stats deck that seeks to utilize stacks combined with its commander to beat down its opponents with a giant monkey. Evan on Dargo Kodama Pirate's Plank, a combo deck that seeks to utilize classic Dargo lines combined with Kodama to cheat win cons into play. Eli on Baral Nah-Uh, a mono blue control deck running no combos that seeks to stop everything its opponents try to do and win through attrition. And finally, Jake on Hapatra Type Hoxin, a Hulk deck that seeks to find its namesake card and create a Hulk pile or a backup line involving Yawgmoth shenanigans. And now, with each pilot on their respective corner of the screen, let us begin.
Evan has a pregame action and rolls for his deck choice.
It is not one of the ones in the sleeve, but it is probably my favorite one.
No one has to know.
Yeah. I'll just leave it incredibly quickly.
Elijah draws, plays a Mox Diamond, discarding land when it enters, Mountain, and Goblin Engineer, fetching up a liquid metal coating into his graveyard. Elijah passes. Evan draws, plays Mana Confluence, Soul Ring, Mana Vault, Grim Monolith, and passes. Eli draws, plays an island, and passes. Jake draws, puts an Overgrown Tomb into play untapped, paying 2 life, Birds of Paradise, and passes. Elijah draws, plays Caverner Souls, naming Monkey, and casts his commander, Kibo, Uktabi Prince. He moves to combat, attacking Evan with Engineer. Evan takes the hit, and Elijah passes. Evan draws and takes damage from his Mana Vault, plays an Exotic Orchard, and...
For a Wharf Bones.
What is that?
Each opponent who controls more creatures than you cannot play creatures. The same is true for artifacts, enchantments, and lands.
Take a bird.
That
That's not
counters...
the wrong thing. It looks that way.
Damn, that's less optimal, but
Rough.
okay.
Rough, but I understand.
I have to understand where that's coming from.
Eli draws, plays an island, and passes. Jake draws, plays a forest, Wild Growth, enchanting his tomb when it enters, and...
Green Suns for 2, now before you counter this is helpful to you.
It's collector
I
oof,
assume you're getting
isn't
an
it?
oof? 1000% getting an oof. We have an accord, you may carry on.
Guess whose artifacts are going into the shipwrecker?
Jake fetches up a Collector Oof onto the battlefield, shuffles in Green Suns, and passes. Elijah draws and plays Scalding Tarn, cracking it, paying life, fetching up a Taiga. He moves to combat, attacking Evan with Kibo. Evan sacrifices Mana Vault through Kibo. Kibo gets a +1/+1 counter. Evan takes the hit, and in his second main phase, Elijah plays a Birds of Paradise and passes. Evan draws, plays a Finhorn Elves, and passes. Eli draws, plays an island, and passes. Jake draws, plays a Wooded Foothills, and casts his commander, Hapatra, Vizier of Poisons. Jake passes. Elijah draws, plays a Gemstone Caverns, and Viridian Revelry. In response, Eli pays a life and exiles a blue card from his hand to play Force of Will. In response, Jake plays Court of Calling, where X = 2, fetching up a Dothy Voidwalker to the battlefield. Then, Force counters Revelry, Elijah follows it up with a Lightning Greaves and moves to combat, taking Jake with Engineer. Jake takes the hit, and Elijah passes. Evan draws, plays a Taiga, and Beast Whisperer.
Mana Drain?
Shit. Oh, that's actually huge. 4 mana's a lot. I was like, why are you countering that 4 mana's big?
I understand. I'm not happy about it.
There's people in the short
both go thanks out the
Mana Drain's overrated.
Hey, congrats on your Beast Whisperer.
They are
I'm more
incredibly wrong.
congrats on my mana drain.
Hey, you stay over there with your Dothy. It was really good for me last time. I'm scared now. That's actually probably better than mine was.
Upkeep, and it's on my main phase I get it?
Yeah, the
All I got was a fairy.
Draw.
Yeah, so after your draw step, you get the 4.
Okay.
Eli draws, adds 4 colorless through Mana Drain, plays an island, and casts his commander, Baral, Chief of Compliance. He follows it up with Nexus of Fate, taking an extra turn and shuffling Nexus into his deck. Eli passes. Eli draws and plays Rapid Hybridization, destroying Dothy Voidwalker and giving Jake a Frog Lizard. Eli passes. Jake draws, plays Schizo Death Storehouse, activates it, giving Hapatra Fear, and moves to combat, taking Elijah with Hapatra and Evan with his Frog Lizard. Both take the hits. Jake puts a -1/-1 counter on Elijah's Birds of Paradise, destroying it and creating a snake through Hapatra. At the end of turn, Elijah activates Kibo, giving everyone a banana token.
Here's your banana.
Okay.
The bananas are artifacts. You can tap and sack them to add a
You have to eat it if you use it.
Elijah draws and plays Green Sun Zenith, where X = 3, fetching up Manglehorn to the battlefield, destroying Evan's Soul Ring when it enters, putting a +1/+1 counter on Kibo. He moves to combat, tagging Eli with Kibo, with Eli sacrificing his banana and Kibo gaining a +1/+1 counter. Eli takes the hit and Elijah passes. Evan draws and plays Wheel of Fortune, with everyone discarding their hands and drawing 7. He follows it up by putting Shatterskull the Hammer Pass into play untapped, paying 3 life, Allosaurus Shepherd, and passes. Eli draws, plays an island, Rhystic Study, and passes. Jake draws, plays a swamp, Fiend Artisan, paying for Rhystic, and moves to combat, taking Evan with Hapatra. Evan takes the hit, Jake creates a snake and puts a -1/-1 counter on Manglehorn through Hapatra, and in his second main phase, Jake plays Imperial Recruiter, paying for Rhystic. In response, Eli plays Flusterstorm with all copies targeting Seal. Seal is countered, Eli loots through Baral, and Jake passes. Elijah draws, plays Imperial Recruiter, paying for Rhystic, fetching him and playing Sardian Avenger, not paying for Rhystic. Elijah passes. Evan draws, plays a Tinderwall, not paying for Rhystic, and Eternal Witness, not paying for Rhystic. In response, Eli plays Consider, surveilling one and drawing. Then, Eternal Witness resolves, Evan returns Greater Good to his hand, and passes. Eli draws, plays a Reliquary Tower, back to basics, and passes. Jake draws and plays Green Sun Zenith, where X equals 2, paying for Rhystic. In response, Eli plays Fierce Guardianship, countering Green Sun. Dismayed, Jake moves to combat, taking Eli with his Frog Lizard. Eli takes the hit, and at the end of turn, Elijah activates Kibo, giving everyone a banana. Jake passes. Elijah draws, plays a City of Brass, and moves to combat, taking Jake with Sardian. Jake takes the hit, and at the end of turn, Evan plays Nature's Claim, targeting back to basic.
Yeah, it didn't matter because I'm going to mind break trap that.
Sure does get exiled.
And I drew the mind break trap.
You drew it? That's so good.
That definitely works.
Evan got my break trap.
That's
Funny.
so
You have the Pyroblast
It's-
to respond.
To you, what you want to do here. I think it's fine to let the back to basics keep doing its thing.
I don't think it is, but it unfortunately will because I did not hold up enough mana for the deflecting swat.
Oh, that's so rough.
And I won't untap any
and I
fucking
did not
lands.
counter, so I do not get a Baral trigger.
I won't untap any lands, and I will draw for turn.
You draw.
That's rough.
I will play a Lion's Eye Diamond that I cannot activate.
You play a Lion's Eye Diamond.
Yeah, he will.
Trigger.
Eat shit.
Okay.
You know what? You got me there.
He's paying his taxes. Let's go.
I will take no other game actions, and I will pass my turn.
That's fair. Go my turn.
Yeah, sure, dude.
Untap.
Eli draws, plays Sapphire Medallion, and Capture of Jingzhou, gaining an extra turn, plays Mystic Sanctuary, targeting Capture. In response,
Put it on top of your library.
That does the same thing.
I understand, but it's better than him being able to set up the loop. I don't think it
They
helps.
both go onto the top of the library.
Capture goes to the top of Eli's library, and at end step, Jake plays his own Noxious Revival, putting an island to the top of Eli's library. The turn moves to Eli.
Thanks for doing the right play.
Thanks for being correct. Good job, team. We got
He's
there.
still gonna draw it and cast it.
I would like to attempt to cast a Narset Part over Veils. I wish you wouldn't.
Eli down takes Narset. In response, Elijah channels Boseiju, who endures, targeting back to basics. In response, Eli plays Archmage's Charm, drawing 2 cards. Then, back to basics is destroyed, Eli fetches up an island to the battlefield, and Narset's ability resolves. Eli looks at the top 4, putting Mystical Tutor into his hand, the rest to the bottom, plays an island, and Capture of Jingzhou, taking an extra turn. The turn moves to Eli. At his upkeep, Eli plays Mystical Tutor. In response, Jake plays Fatal Push, destroying Baral. Eli fetches up Cyclonic Rift to the top of his library, draws, down takes Narset, looking at the top 4, putting Opt into his hand, the rest to the bottom, and plays Patron Wizard. He follows it up with All Runes Epiphany, creating 2 birds, gaining extra turn, and plays Opt, scrying 1 and drawing. Eli passes. Eli draws and recasts his commander, Baral, Chief of Compliance, and overloads Cyclonic Rift. In response, Elijah activates Kibo, giving everyone a banana, and activates Engineer, sacrificing a banana to return Liquid Metal Coating to the battlefield. Then, Eli bounces his opponent's non-land permanents back to their hands, and he moves to combat, taking Jake with his birds. Jake takes the hit, and Eli passes. Jake draws, plays Verdant Catacombs, and Wild Growth, paying for Rhystic. In response, Eli activates Patron Wizard, tapping Baral. Jake pays for Patron Wizard, and Wild Growth enchants a Swamp. He follows it up with Fiend Artist, paying for Rhystic. In response, Eli activates Patron Wizard, tapping itself. In response, Jake cracks his Catacombs, paying life, fetching up a forest, and pays for Patron Wizard. Jake passes. Elijah draws, plays Lightning Greaves, paying for Rhystic, casts his commander, Kibo, Uktabi Prince, not paying for Rhystic, and equips Kibo with Greaves. In response, Eli channels Odawara, Soaring City, bouncing Kibo back to Elijah's hand. Elijah plays Shadow Spear, not paying for Rhystic, and passes. Evan draws, plays Lion's Eye Diamond, not paying for Rhystic, Grim Monolith, not paying for Rhystic, Findhorn Elves, not paying for Rhystic, and Allosaurus Shepherd, not paying for Rhystic. Evan passes. Eli draws, plays a Soul Ring, and Teferi, Master of Time, uptaking him, drawing and discarding. He plays Search for Iskanta, and in response, activates Patron Wizard, tapping Baral, countering Search for Iskanta, and looting through Baral. He plays an island and passes. At Jake's upkeep, Eli downtakes Teferi, phasing out Fiend Artisan. Jake draws, plays a Birds of Paradise, paying for Rhystic, and Agatha's Soul Cauldron, paying for Rhystic. In response, Eli plays Arcane Denial, countering Cauldron. Jake follows it up with a Carrion Feeder, paying for Ristic, and passes. At Elijah's upkeep, Jake and Eli both draw a card through Arcane Denial, and Eli activates Teferi, drawing and discarding. Elijah draws, plays a Windswept Thief, and Kibo, Uktabi Prince, paying for Ristic, equips Shadow Spear to Kibo, equips Lightning Greaves to Kibo, and cracks Heath, paying life, fetching up a Forest. He plays Sardian Avenger, not paying for Ristic, and moves to combat, saying Eli with Kibo, with Eli sacrificing Soul Ring and Kibo gaining a +1/+1 counter. Eli takes the hit, and Elijah passes. At Evan's upkeep, Eli activates Teferi, drawing and discarding. Evan draws, casts his commander, Kodama of the East Tree, not paying for Ristic, and sacrifices Grim Monolith, Allosaurus Shepherd, and Findhorn Elves to help cast his other commander, Dargo the Shipwrecker, not paying for Ristic. In response, Eli activates Patron Wizard, tapping it with Evan paying the 1. Then, Dargo enters, triggering Kodama, with Evan putting Bane of Progress onto the battlefield. In response to the trigger, Evan activates Lion's Eye Diamond, discarding his hand and adding 3 red, taking a damage from Sardian Avenger. Then, Bane of Progress destroys all artifacts and enchantments and gains 5 +1/+1 counters, with Eli taking a damage through Sardian Avenger. Evan passes. Eli draws and uptakes Teferi, drawing and discarding, and plays Temporal Manipulation, and in response plays Narset's Reversal, copying and bouncing Temporal Manipulation. The copy resolves, gaining Eli an extra turn. He replays Temporal Manipulation, gaining an extra turn, Timestream Navigator gaining the City's Blessing, and plays an island. He moves to combat, attacking Jake with his birds. Jake takes the hit, and Eli passes. Eli draws and delves some of his graveyard to play Temporal Trespass, gaining an extra turn, and activates Teferi, drawing and discarding. He activates Timestream Navigator, putting it to the bottom of his library, gaining an extra turn, and Nexus of Fate, gaining an extra turn and shuffling Nexus of Fate into his deck. He moves to combat, attacking Jake with his birds. Jake takes the hit, and Eli passes. Eli draws and delves some of his graveyard to play Dig Through Time, looking at the top 7, putting 2 into his hand, the rest of the bottom, and uptakes Teferi, drawing and discarding. He follows it up with Walk the Eons, gaining an extra turn, plays Jace, Vryn's Prodigy, Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, uptaking Wielder, milling 2 and drawing, and passing. Eli draws and activates Wielder, milling 2 and drawing, uptakes Teferi, drawing and discarding, and Spell Seeker, fetching up Pull from Tomorrow into his hand. He activates Baby Jake, drawing, discarding, and transforming him to Jace Telepath Unbound, down-taking him, flashing back Temporal Manipulation, gaining an extra turn. He plays Pull from Tomorrow, where X equals 6, drawing 6 and discarding a card, plays an island, and passes. Eli draws, uptakes Telepath, and uptakes Teferi, drawing and discarding. He plays Time Stretch, gaining 2 extra turns, Thought Vessel, Timestream Navigator, and uptakes Wielder, milling 2 and drawing. At this, the rest of the table just kinda packs up and lets Eli's non-deterministic combo go off, until finally...
Thassa's Oracle. Okay.
You got it. Here's your counter spells back.
Here, 1 second.
I almost got there. We got there.
That was the last pick of the draft.
I know. But to be fair, it was also just because everyone else, bruh.
The table sees the writing on the wall, and Eli wins the game.
Alright, so after that round, the final standings of the 2023 Mayhem Summer Slam are... In 4th place, we have Borkish Own Masters at 190 points. In 3rd place, we have Ballistic Studies at 220 points. In 2nd place, we have Maripool Marauders at 280 points. And finally, your champion for the 2023 Mayhem Summer Slam is... Ink Mothenheimer at 340 points. Congratulations to Ash, Josh, and Eli for taking home the win. And thank you to all who tuned in to the Mayhem Summer Slam.